A huge difference between low-level doubles players and high-level doubles players is what they cover and what they leave exposed on purpose during their points. And in today's special strategy analysis video, we're going to be taking a look at some real-life point play of the Bryan brothers, showing you what they leave exposed and what they cover so that you can copy it in your own matches. So let's go ahead and get right to it. This is the Bryan brothers versus Mahut and Herbert at the Australian Open in 2019. And first of all, if you've been enjoying these analysis lessons, do me a favor and click like. That really helps the videos out a lot, helps me out a lot, it helps more tennis players see this type of content. So do me a favor and click like. Let's go ahead and play this first point, and I'll let you go ahead and view it. We've got a serve and volley from Mahut. Both players up at the net versus two players back. I just want you to see kind of what happens in this point before we break it down. And so in this particular scenario, we've got the two Frenchmen coming in for the attacks. We have two offensive players versus two defensive players. And so what I really want to focus in on is what do the two Frenchmen cover and what do they leave open? And we're going to look at a couple examples of this, both from the Bryan brothers and the Frenchmen. And I'm also going to show you how you can copy this in your own points. But after the serve and volley, here's the first volley after the serve. And we see Bob scooting out to hit a forehand here instead of a backhand. And what I would like you to see is how Herbert and Mahut cover this shot. The ball lands well in the corner. This is a really excellent volley by Mahut. And so it pushes Bob off of the court. What do these two players focus on? Watch what they do as Bob gets set to hit this ball here. You see Mahut right up next to the middle line. Here's contact right here. And we see Herbert covering the alley. And there's basically three different choices that Bob has here. There's more than three, but three fundamental ones. If he wants to try to pass them, then he could either try to target the alley, he could either try to hit between them, or he could try to hit an angle. There's the lob, there's dip at the feet, there's, try to jam them. Like, there's other options. But let's just say he's trying to hit around them. There's three main choices: down the alley, right in the middle, and the angle. And what we're really focusing on today is this lateral movement, right and left. What are they covering and what are they leaving open? And so right now, with the ball having landed right here, we've got Mahut almost dead in the middle of the court, and we've got Herbert shifted over more towards the alley. And you see that both of them, if we go back a couple frames, just moved in that direction. They both just shifted to the left. And so what is the thing that they've left open? They have purposefully, consciously made the decision to leave this exposed, and they've locked down the middle and the alley instead. Let's go ahead and go forwards in the points. More examples to come. They're going to make everything really clear here. Next ball goes to the very center of the court. And now watch the two players. Watch Mahut and Herbert. Watch how they both shift to the right. They're right now because the ball just landed in the center of the court. And so both of them shift in this direction because the ball just moved in that direction. So by the time Mike hits this shot and they split step, when contact is made, they're both pretty close to in the middle of their side of the court. Not exactly in the middle, but they've both shifted back in that direction to follow the ball. Next ball goes back to Bob. By the way, watch how both of them make a play at this ball in the middle, which is fantastic, something I talk a lot about with our students. And so when this ball is hit, look at how both of them are crowding the middle, and they're making a conscious choice here, maybe a little bit of a time crunch here for Herbert. Leave open a little bit of the alley, and then they've left open the angle, and they've really decided to cover that middle and put a premium on that. And so now we're back, ball in the same spot, and now they're a little bit more even, a little bit more spread. But look at Mahut's position close to the middle. Herbert pretty much right in the middle of his side of the court. So we have a little bit of exposure here and a lot of exposure here. And sliding forwards, here's the actual winner. So that's point scenario number one. We're going to layer a few of these, and then I'm going to actually talk about why this is important to you in just a second. Our next analysis point features Mike serving. Let's go ahead and roll through it really quick so you can see the point. Similar in the fact that there's a serve and volley. and then 2 offensive players and 2 defensive players. But this point is different because the geometry of the point shifts back and forth. And so what I mean by that is the lateral movement is shifting from right side to left side. Let's break it down, and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. So after the serve and volley, Mike hits the ball straight ahead. On the previous point, the serving player hit the ball cross court. So instead of the players being staggered over to this side of the court, remember that previous first volley hit like here. And so we saw the players putting a premium on the alley and on the middle, and they were leaving open the sharp angle. Here, everything is flipped because Mike decided to go down the line instead. So we've got Bob blocking up the middle. We've got Mike covering the angle, and they've decided to leave open the sharp angle. So as we move forwards in the points, let's see what unfolds here. After that shot, the ball goes back to the other side. And both the brothers kind of converged on that ball in the middle, which something I pointed out in the previous point, which I absolutely love, something that in amateur doubles, you see the 2 players like kind of both go like this a lot of times. Professional doubles, it's the opposite. You're seeing them converge on the center. So they're left in a little bit of an awkward position here, and especially because the ball is traveling back to the other side of the court. So Bob here realizes that he's in a tough spot. He's got to get someplace. If they're going to continue with the same kind of court coverage, it's his job to get over here. Mike is basically already where he needs to be. So you see Bob really hustle to get over to the correct spot. And by the time they split step right here, they're still pretty close to the middle, but Mike hasn't really moved anywhere. He's shifted forwards. You can see that he's pretty close to the center line here, and Bob has really left quite a bit of court exposed down the line. All right, so let's keep going forwards here. Bit of a stumble here, and court gets left open. Look at Bob, how he's still right on top of the middle. Mike realizes that he's got a lot of work to get to that exposed court. And what's really interesting about this point is Mike gets to the ball and he changes the direction. The brothers went from being in a position to cover this side of the court with somebody covering the middle and somebody covering this side, and now the ball is about to completely shift and go over to the other side of the court. So what do you think that means about their positioning? When the ball drifts over to the other side, watch both of the brothers here. Bob realizes right here that, oh, now I need to shift from middle mindset more to alley mindset. And Mike, the one who hit the angle, has gone from alley mindset to middle mindset. And so by the time the ball is hit, they've both shifted over in this direction because the ball has landed over on this side of the court. So they went from that side focus to this side focus as the ball traveled from side to side. I don't think there's anything else I really want to call out here on the rest of this point. Oh, there is one more thing. The reason why they lost this point, kind of interesting. The ball stays over on this side of the court for a couple shots in a row, so Bob and Mike kind of maintain that same position with Mike covering the middle and Bob making sure that he's got the alley covered. So this like really classic position, making sure that they've got those targets closed down. And then the reason why they get in trouble here is Mike decides to change the direction again. Anytime the ball shifts sides, you have to shift your position to the other half of the court. So they just went through a transition of like 3 shots landing on this side, boom, boom, boom. And so they could pretty much just maintain their position. Now what just happened here is Mike decides to go from this direction to this direction. And what that does is it leaves an opening. It leaves a vulnerability back behind the direction that they just moved from. So after he targets that shot in that direction, he leaves a big opening, and it was not a bad volley. I mean, he really stretched Mahou. That's not Mahou, sorry, that's Herbert. He really stretched Herbert in that direction, but Herbert got his racket on it, and so they left themselves exposed. And so you see both brothers trying to shift in that direction, but it's too late. So just remember, in doubles, when you're at the net, anytime you change the direction of the ball, you and your partner both have a lot of ground to cover to go to the other side to be in the correct position. So let's talk about some application. What does this mean for you? That's what we'll talk about next. Here's a tennis strategy principle that I think needs to be talked about more frequently, and that is you can't cover everything. Even though you have a doubles partner, you can't possibly cover the entire court. And the reason why is it's just a lot of real estate. There's a lot of square footage. Your side of the court, just half of the court on the doubles side, is 39 feet from the net to the baseline, and then 36 feet. So you combine those two numbers, and we're talking about 1,404 feet, 1,400 square feet of real estate that has to be covered. So when you and your partner are at the net, and again, in this video, we're just focusing on lateral because it's kind of its own topic. So when you and your partner are at the net and in half of your own side of the court, and your opponents have, again, just focusing on lateral, they could go alley, they could go middle, or they could go angle in like a situation where the ball is over here someplace. They could go alley, they can go middle, they can go angle. You can't effectively cover all three of those because there's just not enough time by the time the ball is struck to equally cover all of them. You have to leave something exposed. And so that's why we see this shifting, and it's relative to where the ball is. And I'd love to show you just one more example to really kind of drive this home. It's a little bit more extreme and a unique one. So let's take a look at the Bryan Brothers one more time. At this point, the Bryan Brothers are starting off in kind of a modified I position. They're not like right down the middle of the court. We've got Bob serving and Mike shifted a little bit towards this side of the court, kind of more towards a traditional starting position, but Bob's right in the middle. So what's your guess? Where do you think Mike is going to go? Let me know down in the comments. Go ahead and pause. Let me know. Which direction do you think Mike from this position is going to cover this side of the court, or is he going to cover this side of the court? And of course, part of the whole point of I formation is to confuse your opponents and not let them know which direction. So really, he could go either direction if he wanted to, but let's watch how this plays out. Really interesting formation and setup and covering here. And the Frenchmen end up taking the point. But let's break this down and take a look at what they decided to cover and how. And by the way, in a future video, if you'd like me to break down I formation, double back formation, Australian formation, like if you'd like to see that type of analysis, let me know in the comments down below. But after Bob serves, they knew this ahead of time. They planned this out. They had this strategy in mind. They knew that Mike was going to cover cross court and Bob was going to cover the alley. So after the serve hits, we'll see Bob immediately shift in this direction, and watch Mike here. So Bob immediately gets on his horse and starts moving to his right just in case the ball goes down the alley. We've got return of service being met right here. And where has Mike moved? He really hasn't gone much of anywhere. He's just popped up and gotten closer to the net. So this is Mike's position right here to cover a cross-court shot. And I put cross-court kind of in air quotes because all he's really concerned about is a ball that literally goes directly cross-court. If the ball goes cross-court, obviously he can just reach out his hand and make contact. The only thing he does not have covered is a sharp angle right here. So we've got Mike shutting down the center of the court. We've got Bob shifting over towards the alley, and he covers the alley. He covers this shot. And what they've left exposed on purpose is the sharp angle. So Bob makes a great shot to get there to that shot. And as the point unfolds here, it kind of puts them in a little bit of scramble mode because Bob hits cross court. Mike has to shift a little bit to his left to be able to account for that space that now opens up down his alley. And then after he takes a pass at this ball, which I guarantee you he's kicking himself for after letting this go, he thought about it and then he pulls his racket back, and that leaves him in a really vulnerable position because now from this spot, Bob's line of sight is blocked by Mike, And you see Mike in a second here kind of make an attempt to kind of duck and get out of the way. You can see him like, oh, I don't want to be in the way of this shot. But Bob decides to go down the line, and that exposes a big hole in between the two of them. So kind of secondary, really what I just found interesting was this setup off the I formation. I found really, really interesting, and just really, to me, illustrates the fact that what is most important? Like, what do you not want to cover? Generally, just to answer the question of the video, you don't want to be concerned with this. You don't want to be concerned with the sharp angle. That's least prioritized. Most prioritized, the pattern that we've seen over and over again, sometimes they'll leave the alley exposed. Almost always they'll choose to leave the sharp angle exposed. What do they never leave exposed? They never leave the middle exposed. There's always somebody prioritizing the middle. Sometimes the alley is left open. Almost always the angle is left open. But the middle, somebody has the middle shut down. And oftentimes both players are shutting the middle down. So that's your prioritization. Priority number one, the middle. And then after that, priority number two, down the line. And then priority number three, the sharp angle. This is what professional players are doing. I believe that it's even that much more difficult for us amateur players to find that angle consistently. Sometimes you'll play somebody who kind of has a specialty for that shot. But in terms of geometry, in terms of the percentages, which is critical because most tennis points end with somebody making a mistake, you want to let them see that angle. Let them try it. Cover the middle, cover the alley. You can go ahead and at first leave that angle exposed and see what happens as the points go on. Thank you for watching. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and let me know in the comments down below which players do you want to see next, what point scenarios do you want to see next, and I'll be coming out very soon with some more content just like this.